Hi kids. Uh, just a quick note. I am recording this on my iPod instead of my phone. Hopefully the sound will be better. I will try to tweak it as best I can. I'm not sure, but obviously my phone puts out pretty crappy sound, so hopefully this is better. And if it is, I'll record on my iPod more frequently from now on. Just a quick note. Anyway, I have been thinking about diversity because I watched ContraPoint's video on diversity. Funny enough, it's called The Benefits of Diversity, and I like listening to ContraPoints because I frequently disagree with him. I don't necessarily disagree with where he's coming from. He has a very different perspective than I do. He's got different background, and he approaches situations from a different paradigm. So I really enjoy listening to his point of view because it helps round out my own. And that's kind of his point, is that when you are surrounded by people or you encounter people who have a different set of experiences than you can draw from their knowledge base and their experience and learn more. You can grow and develop as a person. Kind of the point of being social animals when you think about it, but a lot of people don't. He pointed out, ContraPoints did, that very frequently you hear that diversity is a good thing, but you don't hear why. It's just harped on. Diversity is good, diversity is good, diversity is good. But why is it good? And as he says, being able to draw on experiences that vastly differ from your own can only round out your knowledge and can only make your opinions more grounded in fact. For example, he brought up the idea of sex workers and how a lot of times you don't hear the opinions of sex workers on sex work. And when you think about it, they are the people who can speak most intelligently to that subject. And while you might not encounter those people, sex workers, at Georgetown, where ContraPoints went to school, you can on the internet. You can on YouTube. There are a number of people who are in or have been in the sex industry who are on YouTube, who make very intelligent videos about that subject, and you certainly should check them out. I will link a couple of them in the description bar, as well as ContraPoint's video. And I just have to agree. I just have to agree with that assessment that we as people can draw from the experiences of others, and when we just draw from a pool of experiences that mirror ours in many ways, then we don't really grow, and we end up with very narrowed ideas of the world. I think I mentioned that is something of a pet peeve of mine with my coworkers. All very nice people, all very hardworking people, but they do have a very narrow world view. They really just have this pool of knowledge and experiences that just speak to each other, and they don't have a lot of experiences with people who are in any way different from them. They don't have a lot of interactions with women, really, outside of their families. It's very strange. So it is very good to be able to speak with people who have different experiences. In my own example, I grew up a public school kid, pretty poor. Uh, I, I mean, until recently, I was a poor person. Then I got a job working for the government, and now I am less poor, but by no means rich. I'm comfortably middle class, I would say. And that is a very new experience for me, and it is very different from the experiences of my immediate family. So they're always coming to me, what's that like to not be concerned where your next meal is coming from? And it's different. It really is. But when I was in college, I think I mentioned I lived in a closet. Well, what I didn't mention is my roommates in this apartment were all very different in their backgrounds. One roommate was the child of a teacher and a contractor. So not rich people, but people who were not concerned about the next meal. You know, they were more concerned about their next vacation, if they were going to be able to afford one this year or next year. Because at the time, the jobs of teachers and contractors were not as in jeopardy as they might be now, say. So that was one of my roommates, and she was a crazy person, but she had very different experiences from me. Another was the child of a couple who owned their own small business. They're photographers, and she's pretty well off growing up, and her grandparents were pretty well off, so she never had to worry about her background or her future. And another person was my friend John, who had a similar background to mine, but instead of being a public school kid, he was actually private. He was actually sorry, not private, but homeschooled. And up until I met my friend John, I had this very narrow idea of what it meant to be homeschooled, and it was an idea that these people are indoctrinating their children, they're not getting real educations, they're, you know, all sorts of stereotypes. But actually, my friend John is one of the smartest people I know, and he's got an amazing education at home. I know this may not be the case for everyone, but he really did have a very good education, and he was part of a homeschool group, and they met like 3 times a week, and they did awesome projects together. And it wasn't like he was off in a corner by himself and wasn't socialized, which is another big thing that I had the opinion of. So having met someone who was actually homeschooled, I got an idea of what actually homeschooled people were like, as opposed to just forming my own opinions based on whatever, you know, based on nothing really. So so there's that. And it is important that we realize when our experiences are narrow, and to seek out people who have experiences in the areas that we don't, so that we can speak to those situations, or at least that we can understand them, and that we can meet people with empathy, even when we can't specifically identify with a situation. We can identify actual people in the situation so we avoid dehumanizing them, which is not a point contrapoints brought up, but it is something that we do to people whose experiences we cannot empathize with. We tend to not be able to empathize with the person. We tend to dehumanize them and marginalize them, and that is not something that we need to do. So diversity is good. It helps us to recognize how people are just people, and it helps us to round out our knowledge base. So that's my opinion on that. I hope you all have a lovely day, and thanks for listening.